Well, greetings, fellow word lovers. This is Phil Chenevert. It is now September the 19th, 18th, what? Somewhere up in there. It's Tuesday. Yesterday, I did explaining the word boot up when we boot up a computer. And ironically enough, today, events happened that led me to do another word to do with computers and the internet. We go to exercise. I go to exercise class, and yesterday, this nice lady came up afterwards. By the way, the old people exercise class where we sit down and stand up slowly. She said, "I'm locked out of my email account, Phil. What do I do?" Well, I started explaining to her that you use Google. You type in, "I'm locked out of my email account," and then you Google that, and you'll get 18,000 responses. And she looked at me like funny. So, anyway, I explained the search engines a little bit, and then I gave up. But today we're going to talk about the word Google. Google is a word that is most used word in the English language, or in any language, anywhere, all over the world, every nation, continent, everywhere. This word is used about 6 billion times an hour. It's just used a lot because it is a search engine. So how do we get that word? Where did it come from? Yes, you don't care, you say. Well, it's okay. Let's go back to 1920 when a guy named Edward Kastner was teaching mathematics at Columbia University in New York City. And he was a good teacher, apparently, but he was having trouble helping his students understand the difference between a really big number and an infinite number. There is a difference. So one day, I guess it was a Sunday, he was walking with his two nephews, Sorata kids, Milton and Edwin, in the Palisades Woods. It's right near Manhattan. And he was telling them, he says, we were just out for a walk, and he said, "I'm having this problem. I need a word that will catch their attention, that will allow them to learn, it'll quickly allow them to identify a really, 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 really big number." And so Edwin thought about it, and he says, "Hey, Uncle, how about googol? Googol." He made up that word, and then the uncle asked him, "Well, how big a number is it?" He says, "Oh, it's a one followed by as many zeros until you get tired of writing them." And so he's anyway. Edward, the mathematician, said, "That's good, but I'm gonna nail it down. It's gonna be one followed by 100 zeros." And then his nephew Milton came up with another. How about gogolplex? Gogolplex, meaning a gogol raised to the gogol power. Wow, now that's a big number. Anyway, so he liked them, and he started using the word gogol for one followed by 100 zeros, one to the 100th power, in his classes. And then about 20 years later, he published a book, co-authored a book called Mathematics or something, Imagination in Everyday Life. And he used that. Gogol means a one followed by 100 numbers. So basically, the word came into our lexicon at that time, about 1940. And it is an accepted word. Then let's flash forward to 1997, 1996 actually. Larry Page and I think it was Sergey Brin were two graduate students at Stanford. What were they doing? They had this idea they could make a little money. They were coming up with a search engine that would search the back pages of millions of things. It was a unique idea of how to find results for people. And they had called it Backrub at the time, but they said, no, we need a better name. So in the brainstorming session, they were sitting around. Another graduate student sitting there named Sean came up. Oh, how about gogolplex? Because that's a big number, and it represents that we search millions of pages. And then I think it was, I forget, maybe, let's say Larry came up. No. Too big. How about just gogol? And they turned to the Sean. They said, look it up. See if there's a domain name. Now, a domain name means you buy this name and you own that, so other people can't use it. It's kind of branding your product. So Larry said, okay. But he couldn't spell too good. So he spelled it G-O, instead of G-O-O-G-O-L, he spelled it G-O-O-G-L-E, Google. And he said, hey, it's available. And they proceeded to buy that. And that's why we use the word Google. It came about through a, misspelling, but I love it. I like it. I use it a lot. That, folks, is a wonderful word in our language, Google. Tomorrow, I promise you, it'll be a lot shorter. But this is just fascinating.